Alrighty, guys, thanks for joining me. Welcome back to the SU Gang podcast. And I wanted to make this solo episode for a bit because I overall wanted to talk about the future of this channel because we have been absent for about 2 years. I think the last video I did was like in July 2024, and then it flat out we just went dark for a bit. So I just wanted to explain a little bit more. I touched on it briefly in some of our other recordings, but just wanted to give a bigger picture. And I'm also going to add a couple fun news pieces that happened since our last recorded video. And because I'm a Seahawks fan and the Seahawks ended up winning the Super Bowl this year, I wanted to just talk about how I felt and also share I was inspired by this guy, Filoki, who's also a Seahawks creator I watched. He did his top 5 standouts of the 2025 season, and what made it different was they were underrated players. So not like JSN, Sam Darnold, Kenneth Walker, as much as they deserve their flowers, like really underrated guys that helped the team get to where they were, especially on defense, but offensive pieces as well. And that's a really special thing. I think that set the Seahawks apart. They put 2 undrafted free agents in starting roles, and they both excelled so well in the McDonald offense. And I also just want to talk about some other logistics of the podcast. So what happened to us? So basically what happened was at the time we started this, it was me, Mal, Bobby, and I. Bobby and I were seniors in high school, and Mal was a junior. And then from there, after that 2023 season, Bobby and I went to college. He goes to Syracuse, I go to SMU, and then Mal, he's now a freshman in college at Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. So we're all doing very well. It's just the fact is life got busy. And originally, we wanted to only record when all of us were together. The availability has been tough, and Bobby has unfortunately not been able to join us. So it actually, a couple weeks ago, Mal hit me back up and he was like, hey, I think we could really start this thing. I feel good about it. I learned some new tricks, and he's been the one recording and editing shorts. He also has a solo podcast, which I'll plug in the description as well. And he also has some clips and editing software for not just YouTube videos, but for the YouTube shorts and on our TikTok content. So he's been taking full steam. I used to be the main editor, but he's frankly done now a better job than I could have. So he's taking over. So big shout out to him. And I still help him a lot with planning and wherever I can, but I really appreciate his passion to start this again. I am on spring break right now, so I had more time to do this. I will be honest, and it's the tough thing about college. I can't really give you a guaranteed timeline of how often videos will come out, but because of the idea that we want to be decently relevant, I decided to have a format where, hey, we can sometimes record solo episodes or just 2 of us. And Bobby has expressed interest in coming back, but unfortunately we haven't gotten the time to do that yet. So it is what it is. And also, we are kind of exploring a new platform. We actually used to record on Zoom, but we then tried Video Ninja. The problem with that was, and that was our first duo episode together, the problem was there was too much, especially on my end. Like the audio exposure was way too high, so the audio quality frankly sounded terrible. So we're doing Riverside now. Our most recent episode with Mal and I was on that, and frankly it works really well. It's for free, and what's cool is I can go to different tabs and stuff and still see the meeting. The echo cancellation really helps too. It's just a really professional platform for podcasts and other things, and it's frankly worked out really well for us so far. So hopefully we can stick with this and it works out. But you can definitely see the difference. It's so much better, especially for me, as someone who doesn't have a fancy mic. But yeah, that's the future of it. Again, we can't promise any insane, consistent content uploads because we have things to do in our lives. But I always loved doing, sports, just talking about it with people and online. I actually have a Instagram account called Russell Wilson Worshipper, which I don't really post about Russell Wilson as much, but it's generally like just stuff about sports that I like outside my main account on Instagram. I'll actually also put that in the description too. And it's just, I just love also talking about it. Some people say I have a podcast voice. So I wanted to keep this up, and Mal feels the same way. He also has his own podcast. He talks more about baseball. He's a lot more knowledgeable in that than me, but that's the future of this channel. We really hope to keep it going. I really think if we can make this consistent, we can upload consistently or somewhat consistently. Obviously, when the NFL season dies a bit, it's a little harder, or when there's like more quiet periods. But hey, the NFL draft is coming out soon. We also have a lot of like free agency stuff that just happened. The World Baseball Classic is going on. We beat the Dominican Republic actually, but that was just a very controversial ending to give us the 2-1 win. March Madness is starting, so it's a very exciting time to be a fan in March, but you know, there are other times in the off season where it's a little more quiet. So there sometimes isn't always a lot to talk about. And again, this isn't our full-time job, so we can't really guarantee anything. But either way, I'm happy we're at least trying to do this again, and it definitely is better quality than before. So very excited for the future of this. And then SMU, my team, also made March Madness, and so did Illinois, which is Mal's team. And we made it, SMU made it as an 11th seed. So they're in the first four versus Miami, Ohio, who had an undefeated season until I think it was the quarterfinals of the MAC tournament. I'm not entirely sure, but either way, very insane stuff there. I think it's a good storyline for both teams. Miami, Ohio, they couldn't play as a lot of good, really, really good opponents. So that's a big caveat to them. And then the SMU, they had some bad losses. They did get 2 ranked wins this season. This is the most, I believe, since the 2014 to 15 season. They beat Louisville at home, and we also decisively beat UNC at home a while ago. We had some other close losses, but yeah, we just couldn't really get over the hump. So I didn't think they'd make it this year, but they did. And I think it's a good matchup because Miami, Ohio is going to challenge in a Power Four team, but and SMU, it's like they also have a lot to prove to get into it. So if Miami, Ohio, is a very good opponent. I think they shouldn't have been in the group of 4. I think the fact that Akron got in over them to not play and they got in as a 13 seed or something's a little ridiculous. So it'll be an interesting matchup. That's on Wednesday. So I'll be watching that. And so that'll be very exciting too. I'm also an Arizona Wildcats fan because my dad went there, and they're now the #1 team because Michigan, I believe, lost to Purdue. Even though Big Ten had a lot of good bids too in March Madness, they played Purdue because they had the other best conference record, and Purdue actually won. They had some good years. I think they made the championship 2 years ago, if I'm correct, against UConn. I could be wrong about that. I don't know as much about college basketball, but it's a very interesting, fun time. So good for the Mustangs to make it in. Anyway, without further ado, I am going to go over just the Seahawks a little bit. So I don't want to harp on my thoughts too much because we were written off as, you know, the 4th team, last place team in the NFC West, which I'm not really, as a Seahawks fan, too like upset about at this point, because Seattle is a media dead zone, and you can kind of see it. Like, examples are Russell Wilson. When he left, he got so much more scrutiny. Obviously, his career didn't work out when he left Denver, but, you know, there wasn't as much focus on him just because the Pacific Northwest is more of a media dead zone. Obviously, it's becoming more popular because the Mariners are good. You know, but it's just what happens. And for some reason, they love glazing the Arizona Cardinals over us, even though we haven't lost to them since 2021. And I think we have a 10-game win streak versus them, which is really hilarious. But The Cardinals are always a team with potential. I view them and the Titans as a team that have always had potential to go far, but they disappoint. On another small note, I actually really like Cam Ward. I really hope he made some amazing throws his rookie year. So he has flashes. It's just his team around him and O-line's bad. So it'll be interesting to see who they draft. But anyway, main point is it was just really crazy to see. I actually had the Seahawks getting around 11 to 12 wins even before all the Sam Darnold stuff happened, like 10 to 12 wins and finished second in the division. I figured it would be the Rams that won it, and then we would be and with 12 wins, and they ended up getting 12 wins. And then the Seahawks and Niners would both finish with 10 or 11 wins, be second and third. I just had a bold take for some reason that we'd be second, but that was crazy to people. So it was insane. Sam Darnold, I was really skeptical because he is a big boomer bust guy, but I didn't see him as much of a downgrade over Geno Smith because the fact was Geno Smith, he had a really good 2022 year. 2023, he was still decent. 2024, he just really started to decline. I think the Rams 2023 game or four game where he threw four picks or three picks. I know two of them were to Kitchens, Cameron Kitchens, a Miami safety I liked, and he actually got a pick six on one of his Geno's interceptions. That was when I knew, like, yeah, he's really going downhill. So the Seahawks, they actually tried to bring Geno back. They offered him a vet minimum, and he didn't want it. So we traded him to the Raiders for a third round pick. Very good. And they paid him Geno a lot of money, but now he's released and now he got traded, or sorry, he got traded to the Jets, which I find hilarious. But yeah, Geno, I will always appreciate what he did for us, man. But the fact is, like, his resurgence was never really long term. So I saw Darnold as like more of a boom or bust guy, but he had more potential to really go up there. But, because of his playoff games, everyone was a little concerned, including me. I thought, though, it couldn't really be worse relative to where the Seahawks were than Geno Smith. And I thought the Seahawks actually did a good deal with him because it was structured where they could cut him after a year. And yes, he would have maybe 50 mil guaranteed, but for a 3 to 4 year quarterback deal, that's really not that bad. It was a really good deal. And I actually like started to really like the move. I was like, okay, it's a boom or bust, but we're trying to hopefully make the playoffs again, and Darnold can at least do that. I mean, he helped lead the Vikings to a 14-3 season, and even if he collapsed when it mattered a bit, his O-line also wasn't really that good. I think people blamed it too much on him. So I was like, listen, I'm excited for him, and because didn't want that vet deal. Taking a chance on Sam Darnold was a really good idea. When Geno initially got traded, I was like, "What's our plan here?" I didn't know if we were going to sign Sam Darnold, and I was like, "If we're going to bring in a rookie like Dart around this O line, it was going to be really raw." So that was why I was really skeptical. DK being traded hurt me. But that sucked. But at the same time, we were going to pay him at some point. And the fact we traded him to the Steelers when he was like, he wanted a warm place, a contender. I was like, okay, we got a good deal out of this in a second round pick. Pretty good value for him. And they extended him all that. I'm like, listen, I love DK, man. He was a rookie on the first season. I really watched the Seahawks, but he had his issues. He wasn't always the fastest guy. He dropped some balls. He ran some wrong routes. So it was just time to move on. And then I would say Cooper Kupp was a decent vet to bring in, but he definitely had his moments and he definitely was instrumental in the development of JSN. That was another guy that a lot of people got proven wrong about. He had almost 1,800 yards in the regular season. He's just always a guy that gets open because even though they were double teaming DK a bit in the seasons they played together, he's just so good at finding like with these out routes and stuff. Like you would see the camera on the quarterback and then it would pan to the receiver, which is JSN, and he would just be open. It's like, why is no one covering him? Well, because he would just shake off his guy really well with a route. He's just so good at improvising and finding open space. So he's a guy that I really hope he and Spoon get paid this offseason. They deserve it, and the receiver market's crazy. So And yeah, he's just a great down to earth guy. Like he's a no BS guy. So I love him, man. And he was a guy that everyone was doubting everything about the Seahawks. So that was good. But that's actually going to segue me into my top five, like underrated Seahawks standouts of this season that led us to the Super Bowl. So honorable mention, I want to give it to Cooper Kupp. And the reason why is because he made some very instrumental catches and moments in the playoffs to help us get there, in addition to having 593 yards and two touchdowns, which, isn't too much, but it's decent for a wide receiver too, especially his age. And he was healthy before he really got like seriously hurt. So, like, if we look at his playoff stats, versus in the divisional versus SF, he had five catches for 60 yards, pretty solid. Divisional round, he had 4 for 36 and a touchdown, some clutch catches. And then in the Super Bowl, I believe he had the most yards on our team, 6 for 61. JSN was the main guy that cooked in the Rams game, but Kupp still got a clutch touchdown. And then in the Niners, we didn't really need to throw the ball much because we were able to just destroy the 49ers on their run game really well, and K9 was just able to take over. And in the NFC Championship, Kupp really came up big because, frankly, Christian Gonzalez had an amazing game. He was locking down JSN on one side of the field. The Patriots D-line was getting after Darnold a bit. He threw the ball away a lot, Darnold, but it was just a really defensive game, which I could have expected because the Patriots had, I think, the fourth best defense. We had the first. So it was just really tough. But at the end of the day, the Seahawks created more turnovers, and that's how you win the game. And Walker, we had a better running back too. So in a defensive standout, we just had the advantage. And Drake May just got a little more shook because the fact is they played one of the worst schedules in recent memory, and it looked like a decent favorable schedule, which is why I thought we'd get 12 wins. But the Seahawks, they really just ended up playing some really tough defenses, and that was why I think our schedule is really credible. Like, it wasn't a Mickey Mouse schedule. It'll be exciting, and we had the MVP in our division, and the first loss, if Darnold didn't throw four picks, I think we could have won that game. The rematch in week 16 and the playoff game, I think outside Baker Mayfield and the Bucks in week 5, I have not seen a quarterback dice up our defense like that, Mike McDonald's defense like that. So hats off. Like, there's a reason he's the MVP, but yeah, Cooper Kupp, massive shout out to him. And I got a little sidetracked. I apologize. And another honorable mention, I want to give it to the O-line. Abraham Lucas had a history of some injuries, and so did Charles Cross, but they stayed healthy for the most part this year. Ray Zabel had an amazing rookie year so far. He's a very smart guy. He held his own a lot as a rookie. I didn't know much about him when he got drafted, but he could play like center and guard, and he's a good long-term guy for the future because the interior was definitely what Seattle needed to really fill, because Russell Wilson outside the Super Bowl years never really had a good O-line, and we didn't really continue that over. And I also give a shout out to Anthony Bradford. He has some really boom or bust moments, but his run blocking really started to improve sometimes, but then there's other times where he's completely beat. But either way, I want to give a massive shout out to him. And then the other ones, now let's get into the real top five. So number 5 is Ty Okada. And I really like this guy because he was a undrafted safety out of Montana State, and Julian Love was injured for like half the season. And this guy came in, he played at a high level as a starter in a Mike McDonald defense, which, if you watch the Seahawks, this isn't anything new. McDonald's talent is he really can find roles for guys that are so unexpected. And I think that's what they're gambling on this year, because they signed a couple really big depth pieces at corner. They might draft a corner, but for the departure of Woolen, they re-signed Josh Jobe, who's another guy that did really well for us. He actually started over Woolen sometimes, but you had him. Ty Okada, a guy out of the woods, and then we re-signed AJ Finley, who I barely know who he is, and we got another depth piece from Washington. But if we can make Ty Okada and Drake Thomas into starters, like I believe they know what they're doing at that front office. But Ty Okada, he had 65 tackles, 6 pass deflections, 1.5 sacks, and an interception, 3.5 tackles for loss. And that interception was versus the Commanders. It was insane. And once Love came back, he never fully like faded out. Like they used their 4 main safeties well. You had him, Eamon Wari, Julian Love, and and Kobe Bryant. Yeah, Kobe Bryant, another guy who he was drafted in 2022. He was supposed to be a corner initially, and then second year under Petey got benched, and then pretty much the 2024 season, Mike McDonald's first year, he really started to find a way to use Kobe again, and Kobe really benefited from that, and now he has a 3-year, $40 million contract with the Chicago Bears. Not really worth a big payday by us because of the depth, but I'm sure he'll do great in Chicago. So shout out to Ty Okada, man. I just really want to shout out him specifically over Kobe just because he's an undrafted free agent, and I didn't expect him to fill the role this well for Love being gone. Next up is AJ Barner. AJ Barner, 4th-round draft pick out of Michigan. He had 52 catches, 519 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And this was a big jump from his first year last year, 2024, where he had 30 catches for 245 yards and 4 touchdowns. And this guy was drafted strictly as a blocking tight end, but his possession was just amazing. It really impressed coaches. And as a team that never really used tight ends as a primary receiver, he really stood out. So they really involved him more this year. Even our own version of the tush push is called the barnyard, where he just rushes the quarterback sneak, and he even had a rushing touchdown this year, I believe. I don't know the rest of his rushing stats, but he had a really good sophomore year. Obviously, we drafted Elijah Arroyo, so we'll give him plenty of opportunities too. But and we even had Eric Salbert, former 49er, have some stuff. But AJ Barner, just a hell of a nice improvement in year 2, already overachieving what we were going to draft him for. And with our new offensive coordinator coming in, I don't know how to fully pronounce his last name, but Brian, he really could be on track for an amazing breakout again, because we got the tight ends coach from the 49ers as our OC. And I don't want to go too much into that, but man, I think he knows a lot of the offense, and he's always been preparing to be an OC, and you have to start out somewhere at the end of the day. So I really like the idea of our OC coming in, and I think he really can help give Barner another next level breakout. That is a guy that I think people should have on their draft boards. I think he is a real fantasy sleeper. I am high on AJ Barner. All right, now at number 3, this one we're going to share a bit because the truth is, Rashid Shaheed, everyone thinks of him, especially that Niners return on the very first play of the divisional round. But who was doing what he does before he got hurt? Torrey Horton, rookie, Colorado wide receiver, 5th round, Colorado State, 5th round. And I think he was actually supposed to get drafted. He would have gotten drafted way higher than the 5th round, but I think he had an injury his senior year, which is why he fell. But Seattle took a chance on him. And before he got injured, he did pretty well. He is a very similar guy to Shaheed, good deep threat. Receiving, he had 13 catches for 161 yards and 5 touchdowns, and his return stats were on 16 returns, 238 yards and a touchdown. I believe that return was versus the Saints. I could be wrong, but he was really the guy that was Shaheed before we got Rashid Shaheed. And then we traded for Shaheed, and he had a little less production, or around the same, 15 for 188 yards and 15 for 188 yards and 2 touchdowns receiving. He also had 7 carries for 64 rushing yards, but Torrey Horton can definitely be a rushing guy too. And special teams wise, he had 13 attempts for 210 yards and a touchdown on punts. I think that was the really big momentum swing in the Rams Seahawks rematch on week 16. He got that return, and that really woke up Lumen Field. Just amazing stuff. And he then had 14 attempts for 418 yards and a touchdown on kickoffs. And I think that's regular season because postseason he had that really big return to start the Niners game. So this doesn't include postseason, if I'm correct. And the regular season kick return touchdown was, I think, to start the half versus the Falcons. I remember it was like a 6-6 game, and that really started to blow the door open for us, and we won 37-9. So shout out to him. I'm happy he's back. I didn't think we would bring Rashid Shaheed back just because we had this other guy, but as a long-term receiving core for the future, especially if we draft a guy like JSN, Rashid Shaheed, Torrey Horton, Jake Bobo, I think they tendered. Same with Ty Okada, so hopefully they're still here. But man, I gotta say, I know we have one more year Cooper Kupp, and he's fine to stay, but man, we could have a good receiving core of the future. Both Shaheed still has so much potential, but I think him and Horton, while they are the same dude, and I honestly, just because of the wide receiver market and free agency, I didn't think we would get him back, but we did get Shaheed back. Those two will be great for our offense long term. And I just want to put them in one position because they had the same role for half a year. Next up, number 2 is Nick Eamon-Wari. I won't go too much into him because I think everyone knows who he is. He's a defensive rookie of the year candidate. Carson Schlesinger won it. I think it was between him, Carson, and James Pierce Jr. I personally think he should have won it or been second. But Carson Schlesinger did really well. Shout out to him. But Nick Eamon-Wari, he had 81 tackles, 11 pass deflections, 2.5 sacks, 5.5 tackles for a loss, interception, and a field goal block. And he just, man, he played everywhere. He played special teams, and then on defense, he played safety, slot corner, nickel corner. He could play man well against some of the best, including Puka Nacua, and just a complete demon as a safety. And as a run defender, Mike McDonald loved using him on blitzes. Just an absolute demon that could scream off the edge. He's just so versatile. And I love this guy out of South Carolina. When we traded up to draft him, he and an O lineman were my first round pick wish list guys. I thought he'd be more of a ball hawk, but he's more of a physical guy than I thought. So it was just amazing. He had comp to Derwin James and Kyle Hamilton, and obviously it's too soon to say that, but there's the archetype is similar. So just an absolute demon. He could play everywhere, and Mike McDonald is going to love using this guy for years. It's his Kyle Hamilton equivalent. So shout out to him. And then number 1, Drake Thomas, and we actually just re-signed this guy for 2 years, $8 million. This guy, also an undrafted free agent. I'm actually going to see where he came out from. I forgot if he was, what school he came out of. He was out of NC State in 2023. So another 2023 guy, and we just signed him to a 2-year, $8 million deal. He had 96 tackles, 8.5 tackles for losses, 8 pass deflections, 3.5 sacks, and a pick. And his pick was against CMC in the Niners Week 18 matchup. Fun fact, I was literally in Morocco studying abroad in Marrakesh, and I watched this game at 2 a.m. when it was happening. I was quietly cheering, and he got that amazing pick. But Drake Thomas, amazing run defender, could recognize the pass. I didn't think he would. I didn't even know who he was going into this year, man. But I thought it would be Tyrese Knight as a linebacker too, but he took Tyrese Knight's job, and he worked alongside Ernest Jones, who's an amazing linebacker for us in an amazing trade. We traded him in 2024 from the Titans in exchange for Jerome Baker, and then we extended him. Just getting to learn from a guy like Ernest Jones really helped him, and he became a potential franchise back. And the fact we're getting him for $4 million a year is an absolute steal. So shout out to Drake Thomas. He and Ty are the biggest like guys who I feel like not a lot of Seahawks non-Seahawks fans know about, but they were instrumental in getting us to the Super Bowl and in Mike McDonald's defense. So I just wanted to shout those guys out. And I really hope you guys enjoyed this video because it was an interesting spin. Everyone knows about Sam. They know about, JSN. They know about Walker, he really showed his full potential to end this season since like the second half of this year and in the playoffs around a good O-line. But, it's also the fact that we just had such a number one defense in the league and people were not talking about Drake Thomas and Ty Okada enough. So it's just amazing we really developed some of these guys and got them back for cheap. At the end of the day, that's how a Super Bowl team really stays at the level they are. So I just want to shout out those guys. And I think we are getting most of these guys back. I did mention Kobe Bryant a bit. He's like kind of an honorable mention, but he went to the Bears, which I'm not mad about. I think he'll hopefully do great things for the Bears, especially since they lost some of their secondary. But, he was another guy kind of like those undrafted free agents, like I mentioned earlier, where he kind of almost went out of a job completely on the Seahawks, and then Mike found uses for him. He's like a whisper like that. So it's just great to see with these two undrafted free agents too. And Torrey Horton on the offense really over achieving, and same with Barner too, even though I would say Barner was more of a guy that really overachieved alongside Mike McDonald's tenure, but it's amazing overall. So anyway, I think that's the end of this video. We're going to get this edited and bring it out. Really excited to see what happens. There's a lot going on in sports right now, so we'll try to keep you guys updated. Appreciate the support on the across our socials. Please follow our TikTok, our shorts. We also upload clips of, and we're again trying to experiment really with how we're gonna record and stuff. Right now, Riverside quality seems to be working great. Big shout out to Mal for doing a lot of behind the scenes operations, and we're seeing some growth recently. So overall, thank you guys for all your support. Please subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.